What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Retro Cup with a very rare Shadow Pokemon that I've been wanting to showcase since the Unova Tour earlier this year, but unfortunately I needed to wait for a Team Rocket Takeover event to remove frustration, and that Pokemon is Shadow Sork. Now, unlike pretty much every other Shadow Pokemon that has released, Sork and Throh were never released through regular Team Rocket battles, and instead they've only been available I think on 2 occasions through Shadow Raids, the most recent being at the Unova Tour. Now, if you played during the event, you'll know the Cure Fusions were the main focus of the Unova Tour, and as a result, Shadow Raids were incredibly rare to find. Plus, unlike the current event where there is no IV floor, usually the minimum IV spread for Shadow Raids is 666, which means at level 20, there's a pretty low chance that Shadow Sork will have low enough IVs to fit into the Great League, which meant, unfortunately, I had to do quite a lot of raids to finally obtain this Pokemon for the Great League. Also, shout out to Caterpie Queen who did all the raids with me, because it was surprisingly quite an annoying raid to solo. I just hate the enraging mechanic, and in solo battles, it feels like the purified gems do literally nothing to help you, so I appreciate the support for all of those raids, and I appreciate the fact that you had to sacrifice raiding a lot of Kyurem to obviously battle the Sork. But anyways, enough about that. Is this Pokemon actually any good? Well, no, unfortunately, not really. It's more attack weighted than a Primate, but unfortunately, its moveset is just nowhere near as good. I mean, first of all, how this Pokemon doesn't learn Karate Chop, I will never know. I mean, literally just look at it, for goodness sake. I reckon with Karate Chop for the fast move, and then basically any coverage move that meant it's not completely walled by ghost types, and this Pokemon could actually be somewhat viable, but unfortunately right now it's just not all that great. But anyways, with that being said, I still had fun running this Pokemon, so with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. Would you like to see a video where I take glass cannons that currently completely suck and try to find moves that they learn in the main series games that will make them a lot more fun to run? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so go into the first battle, leading Spinder into Medicham. This is a huge core breaker to the team, of course. They're going to be on Psycho Cut rather than Encounter these days, as Psycho Cut with Dynamic Punch is quite a strong pairing, only taking 5 fast moves to get to that Dynamic Punch. But now I'm going to go for an Icy Wind, of course, shielding the first move there. I've now debuffed their attack. I might be able to tank this, but I'm probably just going to double shield anyways, of course. Using both my shields straight away, not ideal in a lot of situations, but you can see the Sucker Punch damage is really chunking up against the Medicham. Hitting for neutral damage here, Icy Wind gets them fairly low, and the opponent swaps out into Blastoise. Now Spinder able to reach a Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb also going to debuff their attack here, which means I can now comfortably tank a Hydro Cannon. So of course all shields are down, the opponent fires off the Hydro Cannon. I'm now going to swap into my Shadow Conkeldurr, and of course I will tank a Hydro Cannon, but they are debuffed, and now I can commit to a full counter farm down, coming out with the Brutal Swing loaded. The opponent comes back in with the Medicham, firing off the Brutal Swing straight away, grabbing the final shield from the opponent, and the opponent is going to fire a charge move. Now from this range, Ice Punch will get the KO here. I'm going to come in with my Spinder and basically just force the opponent to throw their energy, but they actually swap out, and my Switch Drop not up yet, but because it was delayed there, I actually bank an Icy Wind before swapping out into Shadow Sork, and you can see Trailblaze does huge damage, but I am resisting the Sucker Punch damage here. We go for Break Break. It's not the best move, but it gets the KO there because we are so attack weighted. And Medicham, even if they farm me down there, it does not matter. A Spinder, whilst only on 1 HP and a Dream, we're going to come in, throw the Icy Wind, and of course, Icy Wind will be getting the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG top on there into the next battle, see Spinder into a Furret. So, of course, I've got 2 fighting types in the back. Gonna say swap into my Shadow Sork, and I'm met with a Shadow Jumpluff. Now, this is actually not that bad for me, as of course, I've got access to Poison Jam. Now, what I was thinking here was, the opponent probably not going to know the moveset. They might just shield the first move anyways, and I probably should have gone for Break Break, as that would allow for a very comfortable farm down, whereas now, unfortunately, Body Slam will not get the KO here. So, I go for Body Slam anyways, we grab the final shield, and I realize I can definitely fight for switch advantage, as the opponent did not swap out straight away. I will actually outpace them just barely to the next Body Slam. So, in the 2-shield scenario, Shadow Sork coming out on top up against a Shadow Jumpluff. They come back in with the Furret, but of course, now we've aligned the Conkeldurr. I can take a charge move reasonably comfortably here. The opponent fires off the Trailblaze, again going for Trailblaze, but then swapping into Dunsparce. So it turns out switch advantage wasn't really necessary. If I saved the shield for Conkeldurr, I would have very comfortably won this game. But either way, Dynamic Punch gets the one shot. I'm going to swap out there, trying to make a catch. It doesn't work out. It doesn't really matter at that point. Sucker Punch from the Spinder gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into next battle, we see a Toxapex in the lead. So I'm going to stay in this matchup initially, and I will fire off a Rock Tomb straight away here. Of course, Rock Tomb going to debuff their attack. I expect the opponent to just full send a Sludge Wave here, especially with a debuffed attack. So I'm actually going to shield this despite already debuffing them. A Sludge Wave probably wouldn't quite take us out, but I don't know if I would have reached a Rock Tomb again. So at this point, I'm going to fire off a second Rock Tomb, and this should now allow me to tank a Sludge Wave. Not that comfortably, as you can see, the Poison Jab damage has already got me below half health, but the opponent fires off the Sludge Wave. I do tank that, and now swap into Shadow Sork, but unfortunately, I will not get a full resisted Poison Jab farm down, so I fire off the Body Slam. Body Slam gets the KO there, and unfortunately met with a Jellicent. So this is absolutely awful for me, completely walled by Ghost types. I'm firing off the Brick Break here, and Brick Break is unfortunately not shielded. If the opponent shields that, I might be in a good position, but the opponent either knowing the moveset or just not respecting the damage from Sork whatsoever, and it works out in their favor, as of course Brick Break does not do much damage, but it should now allow a Brutal Swing to get the KO. However, they will outpace me to the first move. It's just going to be a Surf, but Conch Elder, like Sork, is fairly glassy in its shadow form, so we're going to go for the Brutal Swing, and then I will try and catch another Surf onto my Spinda, and I'm able to do exactly that. Surf gets the KO. I'm now going to overfarm as much as possible with the Conch Elder, throwing just before they reach the next Surf here, and I need something weak to fighting in the back, and it is going to be weak to fighting. It's for it, but we're not able to reach a last second Dynamic Punch, and that is incredibly painful. I settle for the Brutal Swing, and it's just not enough damage there, and of course Swift will very easily take us out from that range, and unfortunately, due to the pacing with counter, we're just not able to reach the move there, and we do lose that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Into next battle, we see Oranguru in the lead. So of course, great matchup for me, running Sucker Punch. I'm going for Icy Wind just because I can throw this before they do throw a Trailblaze of their own, debuff their attack. They swap into a Shadow Kanto Ninetales here. Alola Ninetales would be banned as it is a Fairy type Pokemon. I'm going to shield up the Weather Ball here, and now I will fire off a Body Slam just before they reach Weather Ball number 2. Now, if the opponent tries to commit to a full farm down, I'm going to reach a second Body Slam here. This will either grab both shields from the opponent, or it will get the KO, and I don't mind either way. So at this point, I'm going to come in with the Conch Elder, and if I shield this, I should be able to counter farm them all the way down. So they fire off the Weather Ball, then swap into Oranguru, but I'm able to swap, catch the Charge Move onto my Spinda, as the opponent does go for Trailblaze, boosting up their attack. Now, what I could do is fire off the Icy Wind, but instead, I force the opponent to throw their energy, in which case, now we can come in with the Conch Elder. I'm not going to tank the confusion damage to come back in with the Ninetales. We get the full counter farm down, and their final Pokemon gonna be a Shadow Machamp. We can go straight for Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch gets the one shot there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into next battle, we're going to see Spinda into Golisopod. So, a great matchup for me, of course. Resisting the Shadow Claw damage. Rock Tomb going to hit for super effective damage here as well. I'm actually going to shield the first move just because I do intend on staying in this matchup here. So, I might as well shield the first one, as I can now go for a Rock Tomb. But the opponent swaps into a Feraligatr, of course. Rock Tomb just going to hit for neutral damage, but I might as well debuff their attack here. I'm also going to stay in as we're still taking double resisted damage from the fast move. They go for Hydro Cannon. Now we swap into Conch Elder, and Conch Elder able to go for a full counter farm down. That is absolutely huge for me. They come back in with the Golisopod. I actually don't remember how much energy they left with, so we go for Brutal Swing straight away, not taking any risks of overfarming, and the opponent does now overfarm. I'm just going to let this go through, I believe, as the opponent fires off the Aqua Jet. We can come in with a Spinda, and I can still reach another Rock Tomb before the opponent throws a Charge Boost. So Rock Tomb gets the KO there. The final Pokemon going to be a Skeledirge, and this is a little bit awkward for me. I am just going to full send the Rock Tomb. It's pretty clear they're going to shield anyway, so maybe could have gotten away with going for an Icy Wind, but I swap out there. The opponent actually throws. I thought they were going to go for an extra Incinerate, and that is kind of painful for me, as now we come in with the Sork. We've only got resisted damage to throw, double resisted actually, with the Charge Boost. I go for Brick Break there, as it's going to debuff their defense, but unfortunately, super glassy. Torch Song gets the one shot, and even debuffed 2 Sucker Punches does not get the KO. A single Incinerate farms us down, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG's up on there. Into the next battle, see a Dragonair in the lead. So this is fine with me. I'm going to stay in, and I will no-shield this. Of course, Dragonair hitting for quite a lot of Dragon Breath damage. They fire off the Body Slam there, which is a little bit interesting, as Aqua Tail does do more damage nowadays, since Body Slam did get nerfed. And another reason why, unfortunately, Shadow Sork just not really that good, because Body Slam just doesn't do much damage, and especially up against a Drifloon, it's not going to do much damage. And this is definitely where Shadow Sork is just completely useless up against Ghost-type Pokemon, and as a safe swap, it doesn't really work out. I think as a Say Swap with Poison Jab, you're going to bait out Fairy-type Pokemon in the Open Great League, whereas, of course, in the Retro Cup, Fairy-types just don't exist, so unfortunately, that's just not going to work out for me. So at this point, we're going to come in with a Spinda. I'm going to double shield here, go for a full farm down, but they've got Annihilate in the bag. There is just literally no hope for me whatsoever. Icy Wind, gonna be no shielded, and there's no point swapping into Conkeldurr there. We can do literally nothing, and so I just concede the match. But GG's to the opponent there. Very nice catch onto the Drifloon. Into the next battle. The opponent's got a Say Swap into Fire. We can come in with the Conkeldurr. And actually, if they go for a Trailblaze here, which they do, they will now not reach another Charge Move. Whilst they get me fairly low, I don't mind that at all. I don't need to throw a Charge Move. And we come out with a Brutal Swing loaded. So we're going to fire off straight away into Dusknoir coming back in. Brutal Swing, going to grab a shield from the opponent. And they are on Astonish, so very slow to get to the Charge Moves, or at least a lot slower than Hex. I can just shield this up here. The opponent does full send the Dynamic Punch, and they swap into a Swallow. So I'm going straight for Icy Wind here. Icy Wind going to debuff their attack. However, it doesn't really do much damage. So I'm going to stay in, fire off another Icy Wind. Now they're going to be double debuffed here. So even though it's a CMP tie, I do not need to shield anything. I'm going to save the shield for the Dusknoir just in case they do reach another Dynamic Punch. They go for the Sludge. We're swapping into Sork here. And even though they're double debuffed, you're going to see a Sludge is still going to do quite a lot of damage here. It does just over half our health. And unfortunately, because I threw two Icy Winds, our switch clocks are hugely misaligned. I go for Body Slam there. Body Slam does at least grab the final shield. However, Body Slam is double resisted. It does not get the KO. They come out with the Charge Move loaded, and I don't really give much farm either. A shield, it's just a Shadow Punch there. I think they had enough energy for the Dynamic Punch, but unfortunately, they do just go for Shadow Punch. Sludge doesn't get the KO, but they're able to mudshot farm me down, and I felt like I was in a very comfortable situation, but I still ended up losing. So GG's to the opponent there. Very well played. Into next battle. You're going to see a Shadow Jumpluff in the lead, so fine with me. I'm not going to throw straight away just because I felt like it's pretty obvious for the opponent to try and catch there, but they do not. They go for the Acrobatics. And this is where, unfortunately, Spinda just not very attack weighted. Icy Wind, non-stab, so double super effective, but it does not get the KO. And even though they're debuffed, I don't really want to tank an Acrobatics, so I throw a second Icy Wind just to guarantee the KO. And they come in with a Grumpig. Now I'm already down a shield. I kind of have to double shield here, as of course, Grumpig, Dynamic Punch, they can just sweep the back line here if they do KO my Spinda, so I need to preserve it. We go for Icy Wind, they no shield, that's huge for me, especially since now they come in with their Ferret, and again, if they go for Trailblaze here, I can just commit to a full counter farm down. The opponent does fire off the Trailblaze, and now we commit to the farm down. Of course, we're fairly low, unfortunately, very close to back-to-back Brutal Swings, but the Side Wave damage will take me out just before we get there, so now I just need to commit to fast move farming them down. We're going to come back in with the Spinda, force the opponent to fire off a Dynamic Punch, and then just hopefully Shadow Sork can come in and Poison Jab farm them down. It's going to be close, but Sork just barely able to get the farm down there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top end there, into next battle, we see a Shadow Chandelure in the lead. Very cool to see, especially for the Spinda, as Sucker Punch is doing huge damage. The opponent eventually swaps into Licky Licky, and so far it's just hard counter city for the opponent, unfortunately, as we come in with our Shadow Conkeldurr. I do shield as they farmed up to a potential Earthquake, and I'm just not confident that Conkeldurr can survive an Earthquake, so I'm going to fire off the Brutal Swing here. The opponent does actually shield, so I'm now going to double shield this, and the opponent is on Earthquake. Whether or not I could have tanked that, I don't know. But either way, I just play it safe there. I realize, of course, to come back in with the Chandelure, we can go for a Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing should be grabbing a shield from the opponent, and I don't know if they can commit to a full Incinerate farm down. No, they do not. Instead, they swap into Hisuian Electrode, and I could have fired off a Brutal Swing, but if the opponent did not throw straight away, that would allow them to overfarm, and I didn't really want that. So instead, I forced the opponent to throw immediately. We can now come in with a Spinda, fire off the Icy Wind. Icy Wind gonna debuff their attack. We can now come in with the Shadow Sork, just barely not able to get the farm down, but they do just reach a Swift there. So of course, debuffed, it doesn't do much damage, and despite the fact that Brick Break is going to be double resisted, Brick Break will be getting the KO up against the Chandelure, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top on there, into next battle, we see Ferret in the lead once again. So once again, going to say swap into Shadow Sork, and the opponent's going to be responding with a Talonflame. Now here, like against the Jumpluff, I could have actually gotten away with going for Brick Break, as this is a Pokemon that most people would have probably just never seen in the Go Battle League. If I debuffed the defense first, and then landed a Body Slam, I could have flipped this matchup and gained a shield advantage, and that would have been absolutely massive for me. But unfortunately, going straight for Body Slam there, we don't quite put them into farm down range. We have to come in with the Spin spinner, use a shield, hopefully 3 sucker punches, gets the farm down there. That is huge for me. They come back in with the throw. I'm just going to no shield this, and then I'll swap straight away into my Conkeldurr, and the opponent's final Pokemon going to be a Dragalge. So if I flip switch advantage here, that would have been absolutely monumental for me, but unfortunately at this point it's not looking too ideal. I'm going to fire off the Brutal Swing. This should be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, and the opponent is going to use that final shield. I can reach a last second Brutal Swing, but unfortunately it's just not going to do quite enough damage to get the KO here. We can come in with a Spinda. They're already at the Aqua Tail. Not going to do much damage either, but it puts us into range where anything they throw from the throat will get the KO. We can go for Rock Tomb, debuff their attack, but it's just not going to be enough here. Of course, the opponent reaching a charge move. The opponent fires off the Swift, taking out the Spinda, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. So, GG's top over into the next battle. We see Feraligatr in the lead. So, a fine matchup for me. The opponent's going to safe swap into Jumpluff, and this is also fine. However, I do have to be sort of careful that my backline not going to be as good up against that Feraligatr as my Spinda. So, I might eventually swap out of this matchup here. So, we're going to tank the Energy Ball here. I have debuffed their attack, and the opponent throws immediately. So, this will just be an Aerial Ace, which means they're debuffed. I can tank this, and now I put them into range where we can snipe with the Shadow Sword, get an energy advantage up against the Feraligatr coming back in, and I'm going to go straight for Brick Break. Of course, expecting a shield here. Brick Break, going to drop the defense there, grabs the shield as well, which is very nice for me. I'm definitely also going to match shields. We can win CMP in this matchup. So the opponent swaps into a Shadow Palkia, and I'm just barely able to reach a Brick Break before they Dragon Breath farm me all the way down. Now, of course, we're going to come in with the Conkeldurr. Look at the counter damage there. Insane damage. Of course, I can just safely shield this up as they go for an Aqua Tail. I will be able to reach a Brutal Swing up against Feraligatr coming back in. And this won't quite get the KO here, but it doesn't really matter at this point. I'm going to swap, catch the Charge Move onto my Spinda. You can see I had a Rock Tomb already loaded. Bit unnecessary there, but we're going to come in, get the counter farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top on there into the next battle. We're going to see Spinda into Grumpig. So this is definitely where we want to see it with the team, of course. They are going to be on Dynamic Punch, which is going to hit for super effective damage. So they will grab an early shield advantage, but I don't really mind that too much here. If they swap into like a Ferret, for example, then I will just swap out straight away into Conkeldurr, and the opponent does swap into Ferret. Now, if they go for a Swift, which we haven't seen yet, but if they go for Swift, which they do here, unfortunately, they will just barely reach a second Swift, as I'm not able to instantly swap into my Conkeldurr there. So unfortunately, I have to fire off the Brutal Swing, but I will not reach a second Brutal Swing up against the Grumpig coming back in, which is definitely quite painful for me. So we're going to come back in with the Spinda. Going to use my final shield here. I don't know what's in the back. Could be pretty much anything, really. But they come in with a Primeape, so it's definitely not looking ideal for me. Going to go straight for Icy Wind. Icy Wind. Going to grab the shield there. I can fire off a second Icy Wind, and it's not going to do much damage, but it might allow my Shadow Sword to just barely tank a close combat. Although I'm actually not that confident that we will. The opponent fires off a Rage Fist instead, which is fine with me. I actually choose not to throw here, as if they go for a close combat. Close combat is going to drop the defense. We can come in with a Spinda, get the farm down, and now it's just a race for fast move damage. But unfortunately, they're able to side away, farm me down just barely, and I do lose that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Into the next battle, another Grumpig in the lead. So once again, I'm going to stay in this lead matchup here. They will outpace me to that first charge move. They actually choose to throw on CMP there with the Icy Wind, which means I get a full Sucker Punch through as they throw there. They then swap into Credilli, and I'm going to come in with my Conkeldurr. Now, I actually don't expect the opponent to bait, and they do just full send a Grass Knot there, which, of course, would do quite a lot of damage. Unfortunately, just barely not able to get the counter farm down once again, so I fire off the Brutal Swing, but they're actually not at 1 HP. Now they're at 1 HP, which means Grass Knot actually flip switch advantage. Not really ideal. We're going to come in with a Sork here, and the opponent comes back in with their Grumpig, and because we do have a Poison Jab energy advantage, I can outpace them to the Body Slam. Body Slam, gonna be no shielded, and they come in with a Blastoise, and now I can throw a Brick Break on the CMP tie, winning CMP very comfortably. Brick Break, gonna be no shielded, and that is absolutely huge for me. At this point, it's gonna be game over. I drop the defense there. We can come back in with a Spinda. We are loaded on energy. I can go straight for Rock Tomb. I could have probably gotten away with going for an Icy Wind bait there, but it's not necessary. And of course, from this range, Icy Wind probably will get the KO after a couple more Sucker Punches, but I think I'm actually just gonna commit to a full Sucker Punch farm down, taking out the Blastoise, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. We see a Hakamoa in the lead, so not really ideal for me, of course. We do have Icy Wind for coverage, but Sucker Punch is resisted. So I swap into my Shadow Stalk here. I'm going to outpace them to the Body Slam. Body Slam, going to be shielded by the opponent. And the opponent not going to commit to a full farm down there, recognizing I will reach a second Body Slam before they farm me down. I'm actually going to use a shield here, hoping to grab a shield back. And if not, I can at least put them into farm down range for either Pokemon in the back. But they do double shield there. At this point, I'm going to come in with the Conkeldurr. As of course, Spinder still has resisted fast move damage, but they swap into a Turtonator. So I'm going to overfarm, fire off the Dynamic Punch here, actually avoiding taking damage from the third Incinerate. Dynamic Punch gets the one shot, and they've got a Talonflame in the back. So we can come in with the Spinder, of course. Rock Tomb going to hit for double super effective damage. I'm definitely just going to shield this. They bait with a Fly. Doesn't really matter too much. I can now overfarm, go for 4 Sucker Punches, go for the Rock Tomb here. Rock Tomb gets the KO. They come back in with the Hakamoa, and I just need to be able to reach an Icy Wind before they farm me down. They go for a Brick Break, but I'm just barely able to hang on. Reach an Icy Wind. Icy Wind will eventually get the KO up against the Hakamoa, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. See a Dusclops in the lead, so a great matchup for me. The opponent is going to swap into a Jumpluff. So another example where, unfortunately, I kind of need to stay in with the Spinder, but my backline is going to struggle up against the Dusclops, so I can't really afford to get too low on the Spinder. So despite the fact that I've already debuffed them, I'm going to shield. They bait with an Aerial Ace, which is definitely not ideal for me, but I'm going to throw an Icy Wind on the CMP tie here. Icy Wind is going to be shielded by the opponent. And at this point, I'm going to no-shield this as they're double debuff. They do full send the Energy Ball. We swap into Sork, but unfortunately, the opponent is now able to swap out. And I've only got resisted, well, double resisted Charge Fuse, single resisted fast move damage here with the Poison Jabs. And they're actually on Hex, of course, because Dusclops doesn't learn Astonish. So they're going to get a huge farm down here. I can double debuff their defense, but again, only resist damage here. It's not going to do much. We get them into their yellow health range, but they do have quite a lot of energy. And while Spinder can, of course, wall the Shadow Punch damage, they can go for Ice Punch. Ice Punch, a second Ice Punch will get the KO from this range. So I'm going to be forced to use my final shield as I cannot counter farm them down. They're going to stay in, eventually swap out into an Ursa Ring. And now I've just got to hope that they're not on close combat. We go for the Rock Tomb, debuff their attack. Again, probably could have gotten away with going for an Icy Wind there, but they do shield anyways. The opponent is on close combat, but I'm able to tank it. Come out with a Charge Move loaded. Now, this is a really awkward situation to be in. If they come in with a Jumpluff, I will throw straight away, but they came in with a Dusclops, and I just hesitated. And I didn't realize at the time they were low enough where if I just went for counter, I could have farmed them down, come out with the Brutal Swing loaded, but I panicked there, and as a result, the opponent able to outpace me to an Aerial Ace, getting the KO there, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's still up in there into next battle. Unova and Stunfisk in the lead. So this is actually a positive matchup for us, as of course we've got Icy Wind here, which is going to debuff their attack, but also hit for super effective damage. I'm going to no-shield the first move here. I don't really mind that at all. Mud Bomb, not really that threatening. A second Mud Bomb will still not get the KO. So at this point, Icy Wind going to debuff their attack. And let's see, the opponent's going to fire off a second Charge Move here. Again, just going to no-shield this. However, it is a little bit risky if they've got a Ghost type in the back. But actually, Spot make a very nice catch there, catching an Icy Wind onto Galissapod. We're going to come in with the Shadow Stalk, and I can at least reach back-to-back Charge Moves at the same pacing as them. But I'm not going to throw straight away just because I realized Body Slam would not get the KO from that range. So at this point, we are definitely now going to get the KO. So I'm going to fire off back-to-back Body Slams. First one, going to be shielded by the Galissapod. I can go for a second Body Slam straight away. Body Slam number 2, grabs the final shield there. So at this point, they might be weak to fighting in the back. So I'm actually going to let the Aqua Jet take us out. I'm hoping we can resisted counter, farm them down, and I'm just barely able to do so. They come back in with a Stunfisk. I don't know what they've got in the back here, but I think I'm just going to shield, play it safe anyways. They go for Discharge, which is kind of interesting, and it's actually a Kanto Marowak, so not really weak to us, but we can go for the Dynamic Punch, dealing huge damage. We swap, catch the Charge Move onto our Spinder, and this should be game over. Bone Club gets the KO there. We can come in, we get the farm down. I couldn't really remember how much health they had there, and I do just go for a Brutal Swing. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Whatever we throw, we'll get the KO from that range, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to up on there, into the next battle, we see Superior in the lead. So I'm going to stay in this matchup initially. Once again, I will shield the first charge move. If they farm up to the Frenzy Plant, which they do here, the opponent is going to full send the Frenzy Plant. I can now fire off the Icy Wind, and of course, Icy Wind going to hit for super effective damage, debuff their attack here as well, and it does get them into range where I can now snipe with my Shadow Sock, but I will tank this next charge move before coming in with the Sock. So Frenzy Plant gets us fairly low. We come in with the Sock, unfortunately met with a Frost Lass, but at least Brick Break is going to hit for just single resisted damage rather than double resisted, and it actually grabs a shield there just because the opponent probably has no clue what charge moves we can run. Avalanche easily gets the one shot there. I can come in with a Spinda, of course. They're on Hex, so of course it's going to be double resisted. So despite being low, they've got no fast move pressure whatsoever. I can fire off the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb gets the KO there, and I will swap out straight away into Conkelder, but they've got a Clodsire in the back. Not really looking too ideal for me. I'm going to fire off the Brutal Swing here. Brutal Swing is going to be no shielded. You can see it's not particularly brutal up against a Clodsire. Tanks it very comfortably. We do shield the Earthquake here, and I realize Dynamic Punch going to do more damage than a Brutal Swing, so I throw it on the Simpy Die here, hoping they let this go through, expecting another Brutal Swing, but no, they do shield that up there. So at this point, the opponent fires off the Earthquake once again. We can come in with the spin that I'm forced to throw straight away, otherwise Superior can probably farm me down. Go straight for Icy Wind. We get the KO there. It's going to be super, super close. But unfortunately, they reach a last second charge move there. Both of us on 1 HP and a Dream, but Aerial Ace takes out the Spinda. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to up on their very close battle and into the final battle of this video, leading into a Shadow Dragonair. So last time it was a regular Dragonair, but either way, I'm actually going to no-shield this anyways, as the opponent fires off a Body Slam. I'm going straight for Icy Wind, and then I will be swapping out into my Conkelder, I believe. No, into my Sork, but they actually let that go through, and that might be a mistake, but they come in with Primeape, and because we've got the energy advantage, I'm able to win CMP, fire off the Body Slam. Body Slam, gotta be no-shielded there. And at this point, I think I'm just gonna let the Sork go down here. I wasn't sure if I would Poison Jab farm that all the way down. It turns out I would have been able to do so, but it doesn't really matter. They're not going to reach a second charge move. We can come in with the Conkelder, and they've got a Diggersby in the back. So at this point, I don't need to throw a charge move here. I'm just going to double shield. They're probably going to go straight for Fire Punch. Doesn't really make a difference here. I probably could live a Fire Punch, but I'm not going to take any risks. Instead, just double shielding, committing to the counter farm down. I will be able to counter, farm down the Primeape, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.